Welcome, beautiful Thrivers, for another Thriver Talk. And today I'm joined by an incredible lady known as Nancy Koenig. She's a woman whose journey throughout narcissistic abuse has led her to healing, transformation, and beautifully, a powerful mission to help others. Nancy found herself in a deeply toxic relationship that almost shattered her, but with the support of NARP and the guidance of this beautiful, amazing community, she's not only healed, but she's emerged stronger than ever. She's a true thriver. She's now turning her story into a beacon of hope through her book, The Relationship Guide, which is a guide for anybody looking to break free from toxic relationships and reclaim their power. So make sure you stay with us for this incredible interview as we explore Nancy's journey of healing, her experience with NARP, and how she's now helping others navigate their own transformational ride. So Nancy, welcome. It's so beautiful to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, can you start by sharing a bit about your life in narcissistic abuse? And, and what led you to this incredible soul journey? How did it begin?
So I was a really open-hearted, ready to love woman. And all relationships prior to that one, my mind was able to say, oh, I don't know about this over here. And there was something about this one, because it was meant to change my entire life, that even though there were red flags, I just overlooked everything in the beginning. And it was really easy to make excuses like we all do. And I had cultural differences and language barriers. Oh, he didn't mean to say that. Or, oh, he must have misunderstood what I said. It was all of that. But it was because it was such a powerful soul contract that was meant to reshape my entire life. And it would have been really, it was like a tiny glimpse of me that understood that back then. But it was growing dimmer and dimmer and dimmer as that chaos ensued, and my whole life fell apart in every possible way.
So how bad did it get? Can you describe how bad it was at the
I
worst?
was barely functioning. I couldn't work. At that time, had a career coaching high profile clients. I couldn't get off the couch, let alone support somebody else. So my career completely imploded. My finances went to a point where there was a moment where I didn't even know how I was buying groceries. Um, I had family challenges within my family of origin, people that I've been super close with my entire life. Suddenly, I was barely in relationship with anybody in my family, including my cousin, who we're practically twins. Our moms were pregnant together and they were sisters, and knows me better than anyone in the universe, even her. It was challenge everywhere. I didn't trust anybody. Just I almost feels like it was a horrible nightmare that couldn't have actually been me or been my life. There was no area of my life that wasn't affected. My health, I was so healthy before heading into that. Not emotionally, I thought I was, but physically, I had a rock solid immune system. I was in incredible shape. And, I was sick almost all the time. And so, yeah, I don't think there's one area of my life that was not dramatically affected while I was in the throes of that.
Mm. What led you to discover the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program, NARP? And what made you decide to dive into that healing journey?
So it's incredible. And I'm so excited to be able to share this with you and whole community. Even when we think that things are not in harmony and not in flow and we're not being supported by life, we always are. And I had pretty much lost hope. I thought I was losing my mind, everything that we go through on this journey. And I had been vlogging. I remember I put up a Facebook photo. There was a fireworks show. I lived on a beach at the time. I hadn't yet lost my home. I was getting close. And I lived on a beach, and there was a beautiful fireworks show. And I went outside and I took a photo and I posted it on Facebook, and I had all these people liking and commenting and things. And I was like, okay, I have lost everything, but I'm not losing my authenticity. These people think I'm having this joyful night of watching fireworks on the beach. And what really happened was that I just called the domestic violence hotline. So that's a pretty big disparity. And I picked up my journal and I read what I'd written after the call. And I was writing in terms of like explaining things to myself. I don't do that in my journals, right? I'm me. And I'm like, why did I do this? And I just had this sinking feeling of, uh-oh, this is for an audience. So I posted it on a blog that I created on the spot. I was going to publish a different book at the time. And I just knew I had to post this. And then I took it down like 3 times. And then the 3rd time I left it up and I put a link on Facebook. And the next day I woke up and I had like 50 something messages in my inbox from people who were in the throes of this themselves or had gone through it in the past or that sort of thing. So a blog was born and people were asking me for help. And I'm like, I don't even know what the hell's happening here. I'm not helping you, you know? And so, but I started to blog on a regular basis.
Wow.
And I was kind of like healing out loud and I was sharing all the vulnerabilities. And I think that's more common back now, but back then, like people weren't doing that so much. Everyone else was posting like their greatest hits, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, here's my life. You know, remember that guy you saw these photos with? Here's what's going on with him. And it was, I don't know, it was something just happening that I was the messenger for. It wasn't really a conscious choice or anything. But anyway, so fast forward, I guess it was maybe a few months after that. And I got an email from one of my readers. And she said, I hope this seems pretty extreme. I hope this isn't what's happening with you, but I know you'll find your way through it no matter what, and sending love. And she sent me an email from Ariel Ford, who was promoting what you were doing. And the email was titled, Is he a narcissist? Or something to that effect. And it went through different signs. And like, it was such an explosion of emotions. It was such deep relief that I wasn't losing my mind, that this was a thing. And I checked off every single box. And then at the same time, there was complete despair because I thought that I was with the love of my life. And if this was true, then there was literally no hope for our relationship, you know? And that was true. It took a while, you know, it wasn't an immediate, there was a lot of denial going on. And, but that led me to you. I did a webinar that you were hosting at the time first. Blown away. I researched everything I could. You had a lot of ebooks and things like that. I devoured probably that first day, so many things. And then a few days later, I got a call from a company that would hire me to help people. And I got hired to help a 19-year-old who was with a narcissist and in a really abusive relationship. And like 2 weeks prior, I wouldn't have had a clue what was happening with her either, you know? So it's just like, wow. So I was working with her, and it was the first time I'd worked in, I don't know, it's been at least a year, maybe longer than that. And I remember wanting help for her too. And so I reached out to you and and said, I need to help myself. I need to help this young woman, you know? And so that's how it started. And that's how I became a member of the program. And I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you and for your work. I can say that with certainty.
Wow. And look at you, beautiful soul. You were reaching out to help another, you know, instead of that real value and truth about helping self. But what a beautiful catalyst that she was. So once,
Yeah.
Nancy, you started working with NARP, what were some of the shifts that you experienced emotionally and spiritually And how did it change your healing process?
So right off the bat, I remember being slightly skeptical about the energy healing part of it, which is so funny now because I'm an energy healer, and that was my first exposure to that. And I remember falling sound asleep every single time I put on one of the audios that had that. And now I understand, so the videos, now I understand that my conscious mind just had to get out of the way in order for me to receive anything, because it was just, it was on guard, understandably. I wasn't trusting anybody or anything, even though you were making some really good inroads there. I was still like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, something just shifted. I just began to I was yawning a lot and things like that. I knew I was releasing energy. I could feel it happening. And I just started to feel lighter. I started to understand. So it was a combination of the energy work and also all the teachings. So when you don't understand what's happening, it's a completely different experience. Once you have some education under your belt and you understand that it's not you and that you're not losing your mind and that really did happen, and you start to just begin to trust yourself again.
Yes.
And that was trusting my memory again, trusting my life again. It was incredible that things started to line up for me in beautiful ways that just reminded me how perfection is always unfolding, even when it's so impossible to see or believe that. Like while I was in your program, I got an offer to go to Omega Institute, which is a beautiful conscious healing retreat kind of place in the States. And another teacher of mine who I was a yoga teacher was there, and she gave me a scholarship to, you guys gave me a scholarship. Like everybody was giving me scholarships. Like I had nothing. I couldn't buy
Wow.
groceries. So
Wow.
she sent me a scholarship to go there. And as soon as she left, Michael Beckwith showed up. And those are like my two teachers in the States that I would have most wanted to see besides you. Like if I could have gotten the three of you together, just like you just all helped save my life. So the
Gorgeous.
synchronicities, the flow came back but I was still with my ex. And
Wow. I didn't know that.
But it was very interesting because I had a long distance. I even got married for a little bit. It's like we had this thing in the States where it's like a winter session in school where you could take all your classes at once. You get these crazy credits, but you got to go every single day, like all day long while everybody else is on break. So he was like a winter session marriage for me. I just crammed all my education into a really short period of time. But I
Yes.
never gave up my place at that time, and he was in a different state. So I would go back and forth from New York, where I lived at the time, to where he was in Florida. And I think that helped me because I could just when I couldn't breathe anymore, I'd be like, okay, time to go process all this craziness. And then I'm going back from my next level until I couldn't. There was a point where then that was no longer the right choice for me.
Yes.
And your community, the forum, helped me so immensely with that because there was so many things involved. There was a green card situation with him. He wasn't a resident of this country. So he had a child who I was super connected with, still am connected with.
Wow.
And that was another thing that kept me in longer because I felt like I was, abandoning that child's only probably sane person in their life. And
Yes.
there was everybody else and it was completely toxic. So that was that. And then, but there was a time where I had a few months of complete separation, no contact. I did all of it and I
Mhm.
needed it. And then of course we get our date for the immigration thing. And I remember reaching out and saying like, well, I can do this, I can go back there and visit. And I left all that out of the book because I didn't want to, whatever. That's a kind of serious thing. And but I remember reaching out and saying, oh, whatever, I can just stop if it's doesn't work out, if it's not good or if it feels unhealthy. I forget my exact verbiage. It's in the book. I put that in there. And someone from the community wrote to me, and I got a lot of beautiful comments and feedback, but one of them was, I can stop anytime I want to. That was the quote, and put it in quotes and put my name after it. And that's all she said. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an addict. Like, I worked with people with addictions at the time and I had no idea.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So,
and it is such an addiction. Yeah.
such an addiction.
Yeah. Oh,
So
God.
even though you'd been teaching about that, I was like, oh no, that's not me,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
girl.
And the shifts, when you actually pick that stuff up and let it go and bring in the source replacement and it's gone. And then you look back at your previous self and you go, I was hooked on that person and now I'm not.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so hard to imagine when you're in that you could ever not be too. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I used to be like a crack addict crawling on the floor for a sniff of the drug off the carpet.
Yep.
So
Yep.
horrible. Oh, and our heart goes out to people who are still dealing with that, because you think you're going crazy. You do.
Yeah. You think you're going crazy. You think you're going to die. You think there's no hope. You think, like, I thought about offing myself, it was like, I didn't know how else I was going to be okay. And even though I believed for my client that I was working with, I'm like, oh, she's 19. She's okay. She's going to get this, but I didn't necessarily have that hope for myself right away. It's like, oh, she might heal, but I don't think I'm ever going to.
Yeah, wow. So how long into like the NARP journey and your journey did you feel like, I am going to make it? I am going to come through this?
Oh, timeline. I would say I started in October of that year, and in March I left for the last time.
Amazing.
And there were a few times in between where I went back, but I needed to. I don't regret that. I left when it was time to leave.
Yes.
I was still growing. I was still learning. I was responding differently. I was saying things like, oh, when he was, doing the whole tear down, destroy, judgment, destruction, all that thing. And I used to, of course, feed right into it, defending myself or explaining myself or crying or slamming the door and leaving, all the different ways that were all equally perfect for him. He got what he needed. Didn't matter. It didn't matter what I explained. Of course, couldn't have cared less what my reasons were. And I understand that. And I understand that it's an illness. I harbor no resentment whatsoever toward him. I'm nothing but grateful because he was one of my most amazing teachers. So, but anyway.
I love that. And we can't get to that straight off. And that's not a mental concept.
Oh, no.
It's the development and the healing. And then when we view ourselves on the other side of it, how incredibly recalibrated and upshifted we are.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Work. Oh gosh, yeah. I
that
did
never would have happened
yesterday, and I actually said to hundreds of people on it, I said, you couldn't give me $10 trillion to go back to life before this, because I don't recognize myself even before the abuse because of the growth.
Right. That's the thing that people don't understand. And there's not, thank God for you, not enough people are teaching, like, there's good happening here. Like, my codependency was off the charts. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to factor myself into my choices. It was just, I wasn't free and I wasn't happy before him.
Yeah, we were doing our normal, which was surviving. And my normal, even before it, was I was over functioning, I was over pleasing, I had anxiety and depression off and on, and I was so dependent on outer validation.
Oh, yes. In all the ways. In all the ways that it was my career. I was a writer for the National Hockey League for a while. Oh, look how cool I am. I write for the National Hockey League. I interview these hot athletes and I hang out with them, and
Mm.
I always maintain my professionalism. Like that was cool, and I give myself
Yeah.
great credit for that. But then it was, oh, I work with high profile clients that I help with addictions, and oh, I wish I could tell you who it was, but I can't. And it was always like
Yeah.
it
And
was
it
always
didn't
something else happening.
mean, doesn't mean you weren't a good person and you didn't
Yeah,
have empathy. It's
right,
just all of our programming has been outside validation. And that's
right,
how we get hooked into narcissists, because they turn it on in spades and we feel like we're home, and then they flip the switch and we're addicted to what we wanted it to be
right,
finally seen, met, and heard and held. The stuff we didn't get in our childhoods because our parents didn't have the capacity.
right.
And we've got to
Capacity.
heal up that capacity between ourselves and our higher self and source of all things. And when we do, oh my God, it's
It's
just a
magic.
freedom that is undescribable. So, Nancy, you've gone from blogging about your experiences, which has been amazing, to the relationship ride and publishing
Mhm.
that. So,
Yeah.
what's that transition been like, and how does your book help others on a similar path?
So I wrote a novel first, and I met my ex about a month before I was going to publish that. And I was going to traditionally publish that book. It was a whole thing. And then, my life exploded. I could, a book publishing, because it was all about him, like all about him.
Yes.
And so it was funny, that was all these, I still haven't published that book all these years later, but I did make my fictional villain. I gave him, narcissistic personality disorder because I wanted to teach about that
Great.
and educate people through fiction, get them in the drama that, that's going to appeal to people. And then, hey, like someone might find themselves in this character. So, and I was just about to publish again. And
Yes.
then I took a class and I don't put too much into stuff like that, but the guy really made sense. He was like, I don't know you. I'm not dropping $15 on your novel. Like, you gotta show me who you are first. So I'm like, okay, well, gosh, it took me a while to write that book. Like, I'm gonna do something else. And then this ebook idea just dropped in, and I'm like, oh, I could just do an ebook. Wait, the blog. Like, people had been encouraging me to publish that for years. And so, okay, here we go. So I just took it and I wrote it and I finished. It was already written, really, actually. So I just had to edit a little bit, change some things around so it wasn't super easy to identify. I didn't get married in the book, things like that.
Yeah.
And but the rest of it was, pure what happened from my perspective. And I finished it, and I realized I didn't do this intentionally, but I finished editing and stuff 7 years to the date of, and the only reason I realized it was that fireworks photo popped up on my Facebook memories. And I was like, it was 7 years to the day of making that phone call that started the whole thing. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, and then the last chapter or two, I'm mentioning things from a now, or perspective. Um, but the rest of it was, I intentionally didn't change anything because I'm like, I could cringe reading some of this now, even where I was coming from. But, if I'm going to reach people, I got to have it all out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it was my journey. And, you entering the picture is the turning point of the entire book, really. And yeah, I just want to show people how much hope there is, how much good can come. I mean,
Mm.
I would not, yeah, the $1 trillion to go back to your life before that.
Mm.
No, never, never.
Mm.
And you can't take that journey out and be who you are today. You can't skip
Mm.
over that. You can't. So I also wouldn't take $1 trillion to not be with my ex during that period of time.
Exactly.
Can't even imagine that being true while you're in it. There's no way I would have believed that if someone had told me I'd say that someday. There's no way I'd believe that I'm going to be here chatting with you about this, like all of it. But it's all I wouldn't trade that for anything. It made me who I am, and that I can help people with something that I otherwise wouldn't even know about or understand or yeah.
I love that. So what can the relationship ride for people who are going to be reading that? What does it offer to those that are struggling with narcissistic or toxic relationships? Is it hope? Is it?
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. It's hope. And it's little steps you can take along the way. I was finding my way while I was blogging and while I was learning more and more about what I was experiencing. So there are some tangible tools. There are some things that you can practice that'll help you so much. Back then, I remember, people tell you to take a few deep breaths. Nobody ever told me you got to do that in your belly so that you
yeah.
can actually get more anxious if you're deep breathing. Like, thanks. I've been doing that my
Yeah.
whole life, my chest. Um, but just little things that people can do, little tools like EFT tapping, all sorts of things that people can do in the moment, to help themselves
Yeah.
while they're still in this, or right in the beginning when you've just left and now it feels like you're going through the worst withdrawal of your entire life.
Yes.
And I remember you describing that and saying that you'd spoken with clients who said that they'd people who had actually been addicted to heroin, known as the most addictive drug and hardest to kick, and that they'd
Yeah.
been with narcissists, and that it was hard. It was actually harder to leave the narcissist.
Absolutely.
So, and I haven't done heroin, or been addicted to it, thankfully, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything being harder to kick than a relationship like that.
Oh, yes.
So,
Absolutely.
so my book will entertain people because, I can't help doing that. And
That's nice.
it'll it'll help you identify, first of all, there's a lot of back and forth, because you don't want to believe it. And
Yes.
I intentionally don't use narcissistic. I hint, but I don't come out and fully say that he was a narcissist. Again, I don't need to
Mm.
do that for
No.
people to know. But you will. There's so much denial and there's so much back and forthing. I remember being like, "Is he? Isn't he? I don't know. He does this. He does this. He does that. I fit
Yes.
narcissistic abuse, but he's not, right? Maybe he's just." I mean, we went on and on and on and on. And then it was like one day, like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm still getting affected the same way. So what he is or he isn't, that's his journey. But like, look at what this is doing to me. Look at what making the choice to be with
Mm.
this person is doing to me. That's self-abuse. So, I think it'll help people kind of identify, like, for sure, yes, this is my situation, or it really doesn't matter. I'm absolutely in a toxic relationship and I need help. And without help, without your support, without the things that your support then led me to be open to in other ways, I honestly, I'm not making that up. I would not be here. Not only wouldn't be thriving and happy and free and like living
Mm.
a life I love, I wouldn't be here. Plain and simple.
And I want to talk about that, like ask you, what does, now that you've been through that incredible healing process, what does thriving look like for you, Nancy? And how has your life transformed?
So I think the first thing is that everybody has different values and things that are important to them. Something I always valued that was important to me, probably from the day I came into this life, was freedom. And I
Yeah.
didn't have it. I was tethered in so many ways because I was always people pleasing. I was always doing what other people wanted me to do, always. And I, maybe a few months after leaving, it was March when I left for good. And by that summer, I had an opportunity to go to South Africa and go on safari and, all kinds of things that I dreamed of my whole life. And I remember my family saying, like, we don't want you to go. I was an adult woman. And in the past, I would have been like, all right, like, I don't want you to be worried about me, or I don't, whatever it was that the issue was. I think that was mostly what it was. And so I remember saying, I'm going. I'm taking this trip. And then when I got back from the trip, I had an opportunity to sublet a place in not sublet, actually. I had a friend that I met on that trip, was moving in with his partner, and he was traveling back and forth to his house in like a few hours away. I had a crazy construction project going on in my home. I lived on a beach, and there was a beach restoration project following a hurricane devastation, which, by the way, was easy compared to going through narcissistic abuse. Natural disasters, no problem. So this crazy project was going on. It would sound like explosions, like they were going off at 6:30 in the morning. They would be dropping off these jetties and stuff, and it went all night. And my friend was like, well, I can't even be on the phone with you right now. I have a house that nobody is living in, and you'd be doing me a favor if you go there and you stay there for the winter. And I lived in New York. I never liked winter. It was freezing. And so I remember telling my family, like, I'm doing this. And I mean, horrified. Like, they couldn't believe that I would leave and leave my responsibilities that I never really signed up for it. You know, I was the kid in the family, and I just accepted my role. And I was the caretaker, and I was the peacemaker, and I was everything like that. And I'm like, no, I'm actually going to go to California for the winter. And
amazing.
Oh my God, I've been traveling ever since. Who knew? I've been literally traveling for 7.5 years since that choice. So I have freedom, and I have me, and I have self-love, and I don't abuse myself anymore, and I don't beat myself up anymore, and I don't replay things that I said and I did, and thinking I did something wrong or something, I hurt somebody's feelings, or, like the things, like, how did I have any energy? It all was going outside of me to everybody else. So I have me now. I travel. I love my life. I have freedom. I do energy healing work. I get to help people in beautiful ways. I definitely want to connect more about your program that you're now. Thankfully, I was thinking that for so many years, like, oh, I wish you would have people doing that,
The training, yeah.
I'm so excited for everybody who's going to get to experience that. That's just amazing. Your work is just going to, I mean, it has, it's just progressed, and your reach has progressed, and gosh, just so everybody needs you. So everybody needs to know about you. And I'm going to do my part in that. So yeah, it's just, I'm happy. I'm happy. I wasn't happy before my ex. I was externally happy. I was happy when something the mind perceived as good happens in my life. That's
which
not
is
real
so precarious.
Yep.
Especially when you're connected to a narcissist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You have like, your entire life is external. There's nothing about you.
And it's like a poker machine. You're either flat broke or you've got a little jackpot pot to set it and keep you following the crumbs. Oh gosh.
Yep. Oh my gosh. There came a point I got together with him, I mean, like a good year or so after I left, because I was able to at that point. Before that, I thought I was able to, and then I just got sucked back in. But at that point, I actually was, and I knew I was. And I didn't get together with him like romantically. I just, got to see him. And I remember just being like, he was doing all his, all his moves, all his stuff, I said, this is just going to be out of friendship. Nothing's happening here. And of course, that's not what he thought was going to happen. And I was just watching him do all the stuff that once had sucked me in again and again and again. And I was like, there's nothing. I have zero attraction for this human being. Like, there's the magnetism was just not there anymore at all. And that was a moment. I couldn't have imagined that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Your being was no longer a match for that.
Yeah. Yeah. The contract has been completed. And thank you.
Oh, well, you picked up the tools and did the work, Nancy. Amazing. So for anybody, yes. Oh God, we can't think our way out of this. We've got to do.
You can't. You're gonna go through. If you just leave, you're gonna go through a little period where you're gonna be like, because you can breathe again, and there's that. But if you're not doing the work on the reasons that you attracted this person in the first place, you're
Yeah.
going to be back in another relationship like that in no time, or most likely an even harder one, or another life circumstance that's going to kick up that same stuff in you. And
Yeah, or the trauma stays trapped inside for the next 30
yeah,
or 40
yep,
years, and you have a limited capacity to be free, to be yourself, to engage in life, to ever trust again. And it's a decline. It's awful.
right,
And, we have a lot of people in this community that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, and then they liberate, even in
right.
their 70s and their 80s, and end up with new husbands and great lives, and they're traveling like you are and learning piano. And I love it. I have the best job in the world, like the job you're doing now, Nancy. You're loving what you're doing in the
So I'm so grateful. I mean, you were my mentor, my teacher, my healer. You were so many things. And if someone had told me this may, a few years from now, that you're going to be chatting and you're going to be doing similar, we share a mission.
Yes.
And I just want to drive people to you and yours, because of course it's one and the same. And nobody can do this like you can, Mel. Nobody, because you bring your heart, and you bring the tools, and you bring the healing, and you bring all the knowledge and the understanding, and the just to be able to those last few times that I saw him before we were separated, to be able to watch him shred me and be like, I don't see myself that way. It must be really painful for you to see me that way. But
Yeah.
I don't, and I didn't. I was really starting to not. I was really starting to say, why are you believing what this person's saying about you? Like, none of that's true. He would call me the least supportive person he'd ever met in his life. And I'm like, wow, it was so weird, because everybody else in my life like knows me as being really supportive. Like, what's happening to me? I'm becoming this horrible person. Like, like I was
Yes.
believing all the assessments that
And
so I
that's how they weaponize our outer connection to validation against us.
right,
It's
right.
until we heal that piece up, and then it's like, actually,
Yep.
that's just a projection of you, and that's not me at all, and you're just not a match for me anymore,
Right.
because
Right.
there it is. I
And in
love
the beginning, it's
that.
like, because in the beginning, of course, they say they find your weakness as what you're already judging yourself for. So you start there. It's not going to be hard to convince me of the things I'm already feeling insecure about. Once you do that, then you can start chipping away at the things I thought I knew about myself. And
Yes,
that's where it gets really crazy and scary, because that's when
yes,
you lose your entire sense of yourself. But you have to, because that self that you're
absolutely.
losing your sense of is not your real self. It's a self, it's your
Exactly. It's death of ego, and it's death of
right, right,
victimization. Yeah.
yeah,
And then it's the ignition of true self, which is held and whole and free and sovereign and not reliant on outer validation.
right,
And
right.
then narcissists can have no hold in our life. Plus, also, then the beautiful things that reflect that wholeness start coming into our field and start giving us more of our wholeness. And we're like, why weren't we taught from little kids, from people who had that understanding of how to live connected in alignment with the field and our higher self? Because we wouldn't have had to. But that's planet Earth, 3D Earth. We've
Yeah,
got to go
yeah,
through all this stuff. We're not
that's
here to
true.
learn. We're here to just deprogram and ignite who we
Right,
organically are.
right, right, right. Yeah,
So cool. It's so cool. And what I love, about our amazing community is we're not just going to bang on about narcissists, and we're not just going to give you some strategies. We're actually going to give you your soul and your true self back, where narcissists become completely irrelevant. No
irrelevant.
matter, no
Yeah,
matter what you're going through, even if you need to parallel parent, like the old co-parent, we parallel parent for the next 20 years, it doesn't matter. You
right,
still are going to be able to thrive, and your kids can thrive, and
right.
the future generations, the buck can stop with us. And, like I love it when people like you, and that's why I wanted to interview you, not just get on your own healing journey, but you're going to be out there, promoting this to the world, because the whole survival model has had so much focus on staying in victimization rather than transcending that and thriving and being a way shower for others how this isn't the end of our lives. It's actually inadvertently, it's actually the beginning.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, you couldn't have said that more perfectly and profoundly. It's so true. It's so true. And the victim consciousness stuff, yeah, it's just that first time that I made that phone call to the domestic violence hotline, they told me I was a victim, that this would have happened to anyone he was with. And I took that victim baton and I was like, wait, what? Hold on. Before I pick this up, I've seen myself, spiritually advanced enough to say I've myself as a creator in a lot of areas of my life. Why would this one be so different? But then I just realized they have to be right. They're experts. So I took that victim baton and I ran with it, and it just drove me deeper and deeper and deeper into victim consciousness. And then when you're there, then guess what? You create victim consciousness experiences all over your life. So that wasn't the best strategy, but it was part of my path. Like I needed that to be part of my path. But your audience doesn't, anyone who's watching this, you don't need that to be part of your path. You have someone right in front of you right now who will help you in ways you can't even imagine. And I needed to go down that victim part first. I wouldn't have a book without it, I wouldn't be able to help others, but
no, and we needed to understand it. We needed to be, I was a chronic malignant victim for years with him, so we need to understand it and also have compassion and empathy. And we understand why, because you have been smashed. But we need that shift up and out of that. Otherwise, we don't get better. And our kids don't get better and our future generations. And we don't, well, the bigger picture is change this world from the whole perpetrator victim model to thriver. I don't care what you are or aren't doing. I can create my life with all of the healthy resources of source and myself in the field without you. Yay. And it doesn't matter how broken, how old, how much we've lost. You and I both came back from nothing. I came back from losing everything, tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And, now I have through several projects, including real estate, I've created millions of dollars in an incredibly short amount of time. So, like health and success and finances and great relationships and great life partner and all of those things from nothing, we walk our talk. And
I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you. And hearing some of like where you had been, and nobody was doing that, especially then. Like now being vulnerable is like cool, but back then I was like, oh my gosh, this woman's been through what? But I needed that. I needed to know that was possible, that someone could come back from that and survive, let alone be happy.
And then thrive, not just
thrive. No, you're
thrive. Exactly. And that's why
that's what we came here to do.
About people not just watching narcissistic videos and that, and just because it's addictive too. You get to get on how bad they are and what happened to you, and then that becomes the addiction. And every moment that we're just focused on that and we're not finding our way out with the inner healing, we're actually not getting better. We just keep bleeding out while that's happening. So Nancy, thank you totally so much for sharing your heart and your journey with us.
My pleasure.
Today. And your transformation is an amazing example of what's possible after narcissistic abuse. And your book, The Relationship Ride, it's, we're going to be pointing people towards your book. So tell me, when's it out? What's happening? When can we do that?
Soon. So every time I think I'm going to publish, something happens. But unlike with my novel, the things that are happening are amazing. I'm getting endorsements and forwards from people. And so it keeps slowing down the process for good reason.
Michael Beckwith, sorry. I don't know where I said Beckwith, but Michael Beckwith is endorsing your book. This is huge. He's like so totally famous.
Oh, and he's one of my amazing teachers who was part of the trifecta that saved my life, and you're right there with him.
He's so genuine. He's authentic.
Yeah. Oh.
He's one of the real teachers. I agree.
Yep. Pure love, pure love.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm super excited about that. So I would say it's happening this spring. I don't have an exact date yet, but if you go to relationshipridebook.com,
Okay.
you can
So
sign up.
relationshipridebook.com.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that'll lead you to my nancykoenig.com will take you there also.
We'll
Either
put it
way.
in the notes. We'll put it in the
Yeah.
details with the book
Okay,
so that
perfect.
people can put their names down. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and then I'll let you know, of course, when I officially publish, and
Well, we'll bring you on. We'll bring you on for follow up when you're ready, when you publish, so that we can let everybody know about that.
Perfect. Yay, that'll be fun. It'll be a part 2, like,
Oh.
okay, there we go. Oh my gosh, Mel, the love that I have and the gratitude that I have for you is just, there are no words for it.
Right back at you, darling. And I love that you're carrying the baton and on we go. So you're making the world a better place. I love it. Well, everybody who was watching this, beautiful thrivers, I hope you can feel inspired. I hope that you can feel hope. And please know you don't have to do this journey alone. I'm going to put up in the description the link to the NARP program. And the beautiful thing is you've got a 60-day back full guarantee, so much support. We all get to meet once a week. You should come on to one of the NARPA Q&As on my Friday morning. Like, come on and come in there, and I do Q&As with people, and, you know, we'd love to have you there. And you get a beautiful, yeah, I think we'd love to have you too. And we have a beautiful tribe that's, you get so many support resources in more than you could imagine for anything that you can imagine to do with this, because I've been at this for 20 years now. And we just get better and better at it. So I love you, Nancy. Thank you for coming.
I love you too, Mel. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure and honor.
And so much love to everybody watching this. And, you know, thrive on, everybody. You can do it. You've got this and we've got you. Lots of love. Bye-bye.